The Lord be with you.
And with his spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, Lord.
Jesus said to his disciples, "As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. In those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, up to the day that Noah entered the ark. They did not know until the flood came and carried them all away. So will it be also at the coming of the Son of Man. 2 men will be out in the field, one will be taken and one will be left. 2 women will be grinding at the mill, one will be taken and one will be left. Therefore, stay awake, for you do not know on which day your Lord will come. Be sure of this, if the master of the house had known the hour of night when the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and not let his house be broken into. So too you also must be prepared, for at an hour you do not expect, the Son of Man will come." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
The season of Advent falls at the darkest time of the year, when days are coming shortest, especially in the last few days of the season. As the light begins to diminish toward its weakest point, we might find ourselves looking forward to the days when the light begins to increase again. We start to hope for longer days and a sign of new life in nature. Advent is very much a season that invites us to touch into our deeper longings also, the yearnings that we all experience within ourselves for life, light, love, truth, and joy. The collect at the end of today's reading express the mood of Advent. Let us walk in the light of the Lord. Advent is a season of hope. It invites us to be hopeful in our own regard and in regard to others. Hope is more than optimism. We need good human reasons to be optimistic. But we can be hopeful even when there is little human reason to be optimistic. Hope is a virtue rather than an attitude. It is born of our relationship with God. We hope because we believe that God is always at work in life-giving ways, even in the midst of death. We hope because we know that the light of God's presence shines in every darkness. We hope because we trust that, in the words of the angel Gabriel to Mary, nothing will be impossible for God. Today's first reading from the prophet Isaiah is a vision of hope. Isaiah imagines a time when all the nations, people, without number, will stream to Jerusalem to listen to God's word. As a result of receiving that word and living by it, they will relate to each other in ways characterized by justice and peace, rather than violence and conflict. At the time of the prophet, at the time Isaiah wrote this, there was no human reason to think that this would happen in the near future, or that it would ever happen. However, The prophet knew that this was God's dream for humanity, and that therefore it could happen, and indeed would happen. Isaiah was convinced that God was always working to bring to pass this vision for our world, in spite of human resistance and indifference. That conviction makes Isaiah the prophet of hope that he was. His hopeful visions can feed our hope during these weeks of Advent. The season of Advent reminds us that God's purpose for our lives, for our world, is always expansive and generous, and that God is continually at work bringing that vision to pass. What the Lord asks of us is that we give ourselves over to His ongoing work so that we can do great things through us. Advent calls us to go on a journey out of the darkness towards the light, towards that expansive and generous dream of God for our personal lives and for our world. It is a season when we are invited to listen more attentively to God's word, so that God's word can enlighten us and shape how we live, how we think and speak. In that way, we allow God's dream to enter more fully into our lives and become more of a reality through us. Advent is a season that stretches us, that challenges us to think the thoughts of God, to be imaginative and generous in the way we see ourselves and others. The journey into God's dream for our lives will involve letting go of all that can have no place in that dream of God for us. That is what St. Paul is saying in today's second reading, when he calls on us to give up all the things we prefer to do under cover of the dark, and instead to live decently as people do in the daytime. In the Gospel reading, the call of Jesus is to stay awake and stand ready. If the first reading calls on us to journey towards the Lord, the Gospel reading calls on us to stay awake to the Lord's daily journey toward us. Every day we walk in the light of the Lord. Every day the Lord comes towards us with His dream for our lives and for our world. Advent calls on us to stand ready for the Lord's daily coming, to be awake to the light of the Lord's daily presence, and to respond to His call to live out of His generous vision for our lives and for our world. Now we are gonna bless the Advent wreath, and we light our first candle, Advent candle.